Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the most devastating, bone-shattering, and flat-out legendary rifles that dominated the American frontier. And no, it's not just the Winchesters and Sharps you've heard about 1,000 times. We're uncovering weapons so powerful, so feared, they turned ordinary settlers into sharpshooters and gave hunters the ability to drop 2,000-pound buffalo from distances that seemed impossible. From repeaters that spit lead like a storm, to single-shot cannons that could punch through a man at half a mile, these are the 20 deadliest rifles that shaped the Wild West. Number 20. The Burnside Carbine. The cavalry's odd cartridge. Picture a rifle so mechanically innovative that it required ammunition found almost nowhere else on the frontier. The Burnside Carbine wasn't just another cavalry weapon. It was a design so unconventional that it both impressed and frustrated the men who carried it into battle. Designed by Ambrose Burnside, who would later become a Union general, the carbine used a unique tapered brass cartridge that loaded from the breech. This conical case created a tight gas seal when fired, delivering surprising accuracy for a carbine of its era. Union cavalry troopers carried over 55,000 Burnsides during the Civil War, making it the third most widely used carbine of the conflict. The .54 caliber round hit hard at close to medium ranges, and its breech-loading design meant soldiers could reload while mounted. But the Burnside's greatest strength was also its fatal weakness. Those proprietary cartridges were nearly impossible to find outside military supply lines. When the war ended and surplus Burnsides flooded westward, cowboys and settlers quickly discovered that ammunition scarcity made the rifle more of a wall decoration than a working tool. Still, for those who could keep it fed, the Burnside delivered reliable knockdown power. Number 19. The Ballard Rifle. The sharpshooter's secret. When precision mattered more than firepower, frontier marksmen reached for the Ballard. This single-shot rifle wasn't designed for rapid engagements or cavalry charges. It was built for one purpose: putting a bullet exactly where you wanted it, every single time. Chambered in calibers ranging from 32 to 44, the Ballard used a falling block action that locked up tighter than a bank vault. This rigid breech-to-barrel connection eliminated the wobble that plagued many contemporary designs, resulting in accuracy that rivaled rifles costing 3 times as much. Target shooters and hunters who valued precision over volume made the Ballard their weapon of choice throughout the 1860s and 1870s. The rifle's reputation spread through shooting competitions, where Ballard owners consistently outperformed rivals using more expensive European imports. Several Western sharpshooters built their reputations behind Ballard sights, picking off targets at ranges. That seemed impossible for American-made rifles, but the Ballard's single-shot design left it outclassed when repeaters arrived. Against a Winchester or Spencer, a Ballard shooter had one chance to make that shot count. Number 18. The Maynard Carbine. The tape primer pioneer. Imagine a rifle that tried to solve one of the biggest problems of its era: the slow, fumbling process of placing percussion caps on the nipple before each shot. The Maynard Carbine introduced a revolutionary tape primer system that promised to change everything. Instead, it taught the frontier a hard lesson about innovation outpacing reliability. Dr. Edward Maynard's design used a roll of paper caps, similar to a child's cap gun, that automatically advanced with each cock of the hammer. In theory, this eliminated the need to handle tiny percussion caps with cold, wet, or bloody fingers. Union and Confederate troops both carried Maynards during the Civil War, hoping the system would give them an edge. In dry conditions, the tape primer worked beautifully. But the moment moisture entered the equation, the paper caps failed catastrophically. Soldiers reported entire rolls becoming useless after a single rainstorm. The .50 caliber round delivered respectable stopping power, and the brass cartridge versions that came later improved reliability significantly. After the war, hunters appreciated the Maynard's accuracy for game, but its reputation for finicky performance in harsh conditions kept it from achieving widespread frontier adoption. Number 17. The Joslin Carbine, the forgotten cavalry arm. While Spencers and Sharps grabbed the glory, the Joslin carbine quietly armed thousands of Union cavalrymen who needed a reliable breech loader that wouldn't break the War Department's budget. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't revolutionary, but it worked when it mattered. The Joslin used a simple hinged breech block that swung upward to accept a .54 caliber rimfire cartridge. This straightforward mechanism meant fewer parts to break and easier field repairs. Soldiers appreciated its rugged simplicity, even if it lacked the elegance of more expensive designs. Approximately 16,000 Joslins saw service during the Civil War, primarily with cavalry units in the Western Theater. The rifle's moderate weight and compact length made it ideal for mounted troops who needed to maneuver quickly through rough terrain. Its rimfire cartridge delivered adequate stopping power for engagements under 200 yards. When surplus Joslins reached the frontier after 1865, they found homes with budget-conscious settlers and ranchers who valued reliability over reputation. The Joslin never became a legend, but it kept men alive when legends would have cost too much. Number 16, the volcanic rifle, the lever-action ancestor. Before Winchester became synonymous with lever-action firepower, there was the volcanic, a rifle so ahead of its time that its ammunition couldn't keep up with its mechanical brilliance. The volcanic represented a glimpse into the future of repeating rifles, wrapped in a package that ultimately couldn't deliver on its promise. The volcanic used a lever-action mechanism that would later evolve into the legendary Henry and Winchester designs. Its tubular magazine held up to 30 rounds of rocket ball ammunition, self-contained projectiles with powder stored in the bullet's hollow base. On paper, this meant unprecedented firepower. In practice, it meant anemic performance that struggled to match even pocket pistols. The .41 caliber rocket ball simply couldn't generate enough velocity or energy to be effective beyond close range. Hunters and frontiersmen who tested volcanics quickly discovered that the impressive rate of fire meant nothing if the bullets couldn't drop their target. Yet the volcanic's mechanical DNA was pure gold. When Benjamin Tyler Henry redesigned the action to accept proper metallic cartridges, he created one of the most successful rifle platforms in history. The volcanic died so the Winchester could live. Number 15, the Colt revolving rifle. 5 shots of potential disaster. What happens when you take a proven revolver design and stretch it into a rifle? You get the Colt revolving rifle, a weapon that promised 5 rapid shots but delivered something far more unpredictable. The flash gap between cylinder and barrel that was merely uncomfortable in a handgun became potentially catastrophic when a shooter's support hand sat inches away. Colt's revolving rifles came in various calibers, from .36 to .56, and saw service during the Civil War with both infantry and cavalry units. The concept was sound. A repeating rifle in an era dominated by single shots should have been a massive advantage. Soldiers could fire 5 rounds before opponents finished reloading their muskets. But chain fires haunted the design. When flame from the fired chamber jumped to adjacent loaded chambers, all 5 rounds could discharge simultaneously. With a pistol, this meant a damaged hand. With a rifle, it meant a destroyed support arm, or worse. Soldiers learned to grip the forestock carefully or wrap their hand in leather for protection. Despite its dangers, some frontiersmen accepted the risk for the sake of rapid firepower. Those who mastered the Colt revolving rifle swore by its effectiveness. Those who didn't often carried the scars to prove it. Number 14, the Star Carbine, the underappreciated workhorse. While other carbines claimed the spotlight, the Star quietly proved itself in the hands of Union cavalry troopers who needed a weapon that simply would not quit. It wasn't revolutionary, it wasn't elegant, but the Star Carbine was exactly what a soldier needed when his life depended on the next shot. The Star used a falling block action that chambered a .54 caliber cartridge, delivering solid stopping power at cavalry engagement ranges. Its mechanism was rugged and straightforward, designed more for battlefield reliability than mechanical innovation. Over 25,000 Star carbines saw service during the Civil War, earning a reputation for dependability under harsh conditions. What set the Star apart was its durability. The action could handle the kind of abuse that jammed more delicate designs: dust, mud, rain. The Star kept firing when fancier carbines choked. This made it particularly valuable in the Western theater, where supply lines stretched thin and replacements were scarce. After the war, surplus Stars found their way to frontier settlers who valued function over flash. It never became a collector's prize, but it kept families fed and homesteads defended. Number 13, the Evans Repeating Rifle. 34 rounds of firepower. Imagine holding a rifle that didn't just give you 7 shots or 15, but more than 30. While your opponent was still fumbling to reload a single shot, or even working the lever on a Winchester, the Evans Repeating Rifle could unleash a seemingly endless stream of bullets before you even thought about reloading. With its bizarre helical magazine built into the stock, this futuristic weapon carried 28 to 34 rounds, depending on the model, an almost unbelievable capacity for the 1870s. Chambered in .44 Evans, a cartridge designed specifically for the rifle, a shooter could just keep cycling the lever and firing again and again, creating a wall of firepower that felt unstoppable in a close-range fight. For settlers defending a homestead, the psychological effect of an Evans spitting out dozens of rounds without pause was enough to make attackers think twice. But the Evans wasn't without issues. The unique helical magazine was complicated to load and prone to jams if not handled carefully. The .44 Evans cartridge, while respectable, wasn't as powerful as heavier hunting and military rounds, and once Winchester lever actions dominated the market, the Evans quickly faded into obscurity. Still, for a brief and brilliant moment, the Evans repeater was the most radical firearm on the frontier. Number 12, the Remington Rolling Block, the indestructible global warrior. When gunmakers around the world were racing to build ever more complex repeaters, Remington took a different path: simplicity, strength, and sheer toughness. Their answer was the rolling block rifle, a single-shot weapon so rugged and reliable, it became a global bestseller carried by soldiers, settlers, and sharpshooters alike. Instead of fragile mechanisms or complicated magazines, the rolling block used a massive pivoting breech block that locked like a bank vault, capable of handling powder charges that would destroy lesser rifles. Chambered in calibers ranging from .43 Spanish to the legendary .45-70, it delivered bone-crushing power with every shot. Its straightforward design meant fewer moving parts, which translated into unmatched reliability on dusty battlefields, harsh hunting grounds, and remote frontier outposts where repairs weren't an option. Soldiers trusted it to fire under conditions that jammed more delicate rifles, and hunters prized its accuracy at long ranges. The rifle's popularity was global. Armies in over 40 countries adopted variants of the rolling block, making it one of the most widely distributed rifles of the 19th century. On the American frontier, its reputation for dependability made it a favorite among buffalo hunters and scouts who needed a rifle that simply would not fail. But simplicity had trade-offs. The single-shot design was a serious handicap against repeating rifles. Yet its brute strength earned it a permanent place in frontier history. Number 11, the Springfield Trapdoor, the soldier's workhorse with a fatal flaw. What do you get when the U.S. Army decides to modernize its muskets without starting from scratch? You end up with the Springfield Trapdoor, a single-shot breech loader that could be reloaded far faster than a muzzle loader, yet still carried the power to drop man or beast with one well-placed round. Engineers retrofitted old Springfield muskets with a hinged breech block, or trapdoor, that flipped open to accept a powerful .45-70 cartridge. For soldiers on the frontier, it felt like stepping into a new era of firepower. Imagine a firefight where one side is still fumbling with powder and caps, while a trooper armed with a trapdoor snaps open the breech, slams in a fresh cartridge, and is ready to fire again within seconds. The rifle's long, effective range and heavy hitting power made it deadly in trained hands. During the Indian Wars, U.S. cavalry relied on the trapdoor as their standard-issue rifle, carrying it into some of the most famous, and infamous battles of the frontier. But the Springfield's reputation was a double-edged sword. Its heavy recoil bruised shoulders, and its single-shot design left men vulnerable against repeating rifles. At the Battle of Little Bighorn, some reports claimed cartridge cases expanded in the heat of rapid fire, jamming the extraction and leaving soldiers defenseless when they needed firepower most. Despite these flaws, the trapdoor remained the Army's primary rifle for nearly 2 decades. Number 10, the Sharps rifle, the marksman's masterpiece. Imagine the perfect harmony of raw power and precision accuracy. A rifle so dependable at extreme ranges, it turned ordinary men into feared sharpshooters on the frontier. The Sharps rifle wasn't merely a firearm. It was a legend in steel and wood, famed for its ability to reach targets at distances that left other rifles hopelessly outclassed. Chambered in massive calibers like .45-70 and .50-90, it delivered crushing power with pinpoint accuracy, making it the rifle of choice for both professional hunters and long-range marksmen alike. The Sharp's heavy octagonal barrel wasn't just for looks. It stabilized shots at ranges over half a mile, and in the hands of a skilled shooter, it could drop a buffalo cleanly at 1,000 yards. Frontier hunters relied on it to harvest the great buffalo herds with brutal efficiency, reshaping the economy of the West and altering Native American life forever. On the battlefield, sharpshooters with these rifles could terrorize opponents from distances once thought impossible, picking off officers and sowing panic among enemy lines. But what truly set the Sharps apart was its reputation. Tales spread of men who could split playing cards or drop targets as far as the eye could see. Owning one wasn't just about firepower, it was about prestige. Its flaw, however, was also its strength. It was a heavy single-shot weapon that demanded time and skill. Against repeating rifles, Sharps owners often had just one chance to make that shot count. But when they did, the results were devastating. Number 9. The Spencer repeating rifle. The storm of lead. Picture a weapon that could fire 7 shots in the time it took a muzzleloader to fire just 1. The Spencer repeating rifle wasn't just a firearm. It was a technological leap that made every single-shot rifle on the frontier instantly feel like ancient history. Chambered in .56-56 rimfire and fed by a tubular magazine in the buttstock, the Spencer gave Union cavalrymen during the Civil War, and later frontiersmen and lawmen, firepower no opponent expected. When a soldier leveled a Spencer, enemies didn't just face a lone bullet. They faced a storm of lead reloaded with the simple flick of a lever. Outlaws and native warriors alike quickly learned that charging a man with a Spencer was suicide. Abraham Lincoln himself test-fired the rifle on the White House lawn, calling it one of the finest weapons he had ever seen. But its revolutionary design came with drawbacks. The rimfire cartridges were expensive and sometimes unreliable. And once the Winchester lever actions hit the frontier, the Spencer's reign was cut short. Still, for a brief moment in the 1860s, this repeating rifle was the most terrifying thing you could face across a dusty plain. The Spencer proved that the future belonged to repeaters. Those who clung to single shots were already living in the past. Number 8. The Henry rifle. The 16-shot revolution. While most rifles of the 1850s were still clumsy single shots, Benjamin Tyler Henry unveiled a weapon that looked like it came from the future, the Henry rifle. Chambered in .44 rimfire and boasting a magazine that held up to 16 rounds, the Henry allowed its shooter to unleash continuous firepower at a rate no muzzleloader or musket could hope to match. Instead of pouring powder, ramming balls, and priming caps, a marksman simply worked the lever and fired again, faster than any opponent could reload. Union soldiers first brought the Henry to the battlefield during the Civil War, where Confederate troops called it that damned Yankee rifle they load on Sunday and shoot all week. After the war, surplus Henry rifles drifted west, finding their way into the hands of settlers, scouts, and even native warriors who realized the tactical edge of a gun that never seemed to run empty. Against enemies armed with muzzle loaders, the Henry was practically unstoppable, but the rifle's brilliance carried serious flaws. Its rimfire ammunition was relatively weak compared to larger caliber rifles, and the design's open magazine slot under the barrel left it vulnerable to dust and grit in the harsh frontier environment. Still, the Henry was a glimpse into the future, a stepping stone toward a rifle that would become a legend. Because when the Henry evolved, it gave birth to the single most iconic rifle of the American frontier. Number 7. The Winchester 1866, the yellow boy that armed the West. When frontiersmen needed a weapon that combined reliability, affordability, and serious firepower, the Winchester 1866 stepped in to fill that role. Nicknamed the Yellow Boy for its distinctive brass receiver, this lever-action rifle offered ordinary settlers, cowboys, and lawmen the chance to wield repeating firepower once reserved for wealthier marksmen. Chambered in .44 rimfire and boasting a 15-round magazine, the 1866 made fast, accurate shooting a reality for anyone tough enough to survive the frontier. With its 24-inch barrel and rugged lever action, it quickly earned a reputation as the rifle you could trust in a fight, on a hunt, or while defending a homestead. It wasn't just powerful, it was practical. Unlike bulkier military rifles or heavy long-range sharps, the 1866 struck a balance that worked in the rough and unpredictable conditions of frontier life. Families moving west often carried one not just for protection against outlaws, but for hunting game to survive the journey. But what really set the Winchester 1866 apart was its accessibility. It wasn't an officer's weapon or a specialist tool. It was a rifle that any hard-working settler could afford and rely on. The sight of its gleaming brass frame became iconic, a symbol of the rugged resilience of those carving out a life on the frontier. Its weakness was power. The .44 rimfire round was light compared to massive military and buffalo cartridges, yet its role as the rifle of the common man is undeniable. Number 6. The Winchester 1873, the gun that won the West. Picture yourself staring down a weapon that could fire as fast as you could work its lever, spitting out round after round without pause. While opponents were still fumbling to reload their single-shot rifles, a Winchester shooter had already unleashed a half-dozen shots and was lining up more. The Winchester 1873 wasn't just a rifle. It was the symbol of frontier firepower. Weapon so dominant, it earned a place in legend. Chambered in .44-40, the same cartridge often used in revolvers of the era, the Winchester offered something revolutionary. A shooter could carry one type of ammunition for both their sidearm and their rifle. That convenience, combined with a 15-round magazine and reliable lever-action cycling, gave cowboys, lawmen, and outlaws alike a massive advantage. Whether in a saloon standoff, a dusty street confrontation, or defending a homestead, the 1873 was the ultimate equalizer. But its true power wasn't just in the bullets, it was in the fear it inspired. The sight of a man working that lever in fluid, relentless rhythm often made opponents break before a shot was even fired. Winchester advertising declared it the gun that won the West. And for once, the hype wasn't exaggeration. The 1873 became the standard by which all frontier rifles were judged. Its balance of firepower, reliability, and ammunition compatibility made it the most versatile weapon on the frontier. Yet even as the Winchester reigned supreme, sharpshooters were already turning to something with even greater reach. A rifle so accurate it could drop a man or a buffalo from nearly a mile away. We dug through original factory records and frontier journals to bring these details back to life. If you're finding value in this real history, drop a like so we know to keep uncovering these forgotten legends. Number 5. The Sharps Big 50, the Buffalo Breaker. Picture a rifle so devastating that a single shot could drop a 2,000-pound bison in its tracks and do it at distances that seemed impossible for the time. The Sharps Big 50 wasn't just a gun. It was the undisputed king of the Buffalo Range, a weapon that delivered overwhelming power in a single bone-crushing blast. Chambered in 50-90 Sharps, this behemoth fired a massive lead slug propelled by up to 100 grains of black powder, creating muzzle energy that dwarfed nearly everything else on the frontier. For professional buffalo hunters, the Big 50 was both a livelihood and a symbol of dominance. Its heavy barrel provided stability, its single-shot falling block action gave consistent accuracy, and its sheer firepower reshaped the economy of the West. In the 1870s, hunters armed with Sharps rifles wiped out millions of buffalo, fueling the hide trade and forever altering the balance of the Great Plains. Native warriors and settlers alike knew that facing a man behind a Sharps was a losing proposition. One pull of the trigger could reach across half a mile with lethal certainty. But the Big 50 wasn't just about brute force, it was about reputation. Tales spread of hunters splitting cards or hitting man-sized targets at unheard-of ranges, cementing the Sharps as the marksman's rifle of choice. Engraved models with custom sights became prized possessions, turning a hunting tool into a status symbol. Of course, such destructive power came at a cost. The rifle was heavy, its recoil punishing, and carrying enough massive cartridges on the trail was a constant burden. Yet for the men who mastered it, the Sharps Big 50 stood as the ultimate expression of long-range frontier firepower. Number 4. The Whitworth Rifle, the sniper's nightmare. The deadliest rifle of the Wild West wasn't just a weapon. It was the ultimate evolution of frontier firepower. The Winchester 1894 perfected everything that came before it, blending reliability, firepower, and ease of use into a rifle that outlasted the frontier itself. More than 7 million were produced, cementing its place as the rifle that defined American marksmanship. Chambered in hard-hitting cartridges like the .30-30 Winchester, the first sporting cartridge designed for smokeless powder, the 1894 delivered the stopping power needed for hunting deer, bear, or any game animal while still being fast and light enough for rapid target acquisition. Its slick lever action and durable steel receiver made it both practical and deadly. For settlers pushing into hostile territory, this wasn't just a rifle. It was peace of mind. Its instantly recognizable silhouette, the rhythmic clack of its lever cycling, and its reputation as the rifle that won the West made it a symbol of survival and dominance. Cowboys, lawmen, and outlaws alike carried it, knowing it could deliver in any scenario the frontier threw their way. From saddle carbines to longer-barreled hunting rifles, the 1894 could be tailored to any need. And unlike many frontier rifles that fell out of use with advancing technology, the Winchester 1894 refused to die. John Browning's genius design handled the higher pressures of smokeless powder while maintaining the smooth cycling that made lever actions famous. Number 3. The Spencer Carbine, the cavalry's rapid-fire killer. Picture a rifle that could unleash 7 shots in seconds, while mounted soldiers thundered across the battlefield, or a lone rider defended himself against a charging war party. The Spencer carbine wasn't just a shortened version of its rifle cousin. It was a purpose-built weapon that gave cavalrymen a blistering edge in close-range fights. In an era where most opponents were still firing single-shot muskets, the Spencer's lever action repeater made its user feel untouchable. Chambered in 56-56 rimfire, the Spencer carbine was compact, reliable, and astonishingly fast. Soldiers didn't need to dismount to reload. They could keep one hand on the reins, work the lever with the other, and keep firing until the threat was broken. Union cavalry units during the Civil War wielded these carbines with ruthless efficiency. And after the war, thousands of surplus Spencers followed veterans into the West, where cowboys, settlers, and lawmen quickly realized just how valuable repeating firepower could be. What looked like a handful of soldiers could pour out a withering wall of fire that no muzzleloader could match. The psychological effect was just as important as the bullets themselves. native warriors learned firsthand the danger of charging cavalry units armed with Spencers. But the carbine had its flaws. Its rimfire ammunition was costly, sometimes unreliable, and lacked the punch of larger centerfire rounds that came later. Still, in tight fights where speed mattered more than brute force, it was a weapon that could decide life or death. Number 2, the Winchester 1876, the Centennial Powerhouse. When the Winchester 1873 dominated the frontier with its fast lever action and reliable performance, hunters and frontiersmen had only one complaint: they wanted more power. The 4440 cartridge was perfect for gunfights and deer, but it couldn't handle grizzlies, elk, or the remaining buffalo herds. Winchester's answer was the Model 1876, a rifle so powerful it became Theodore Roosevelt's favorite hunting companion. The 1876 used a scaled-up version of the 1873's toggle-link action, strengthened to handle serious big-game cartridges like the 4575 Winchester and the brutal 5095 Express. For the first time, a lever-action repeater could deliver the knockdown power of a single-shot buffalo rifle while maintaining the rapid-fire capability that made Winchesters legendary. Roosevelt carried his 1876 across the Dakota Badlands, using it to take everything from deer to grizzly bears. He called it his favorite rifle, praising its combination of power and handling. Canadian Mounties adopted it as their standard long arm, trusting it to handle the harsh conditions and dangerous game of the northern wilderness. The 1876 offered the best of both worlds. A hunter could face a charging grizzly with confidence, knowing he had multiple rounds of heavy-hitting ammunition ready to fire as fast as he could work the lever, but that power came with weight. The 1876 was a heavy rifle, and its large frame action made it bulkier than the nimble 1873. Ammunition was also expensive and less common than the ubiquitous 4440. Still, for those who needed lever-action firepower that could handle anything the frontier threw at them, the Winchester 1876 was the ultimate tool. Number 1, the Winchester 1894, the legend that never died. The deadliest rifle of the Wild West wasn't just a weapon. It was the ultimate evolution of frontier firepower. The Winchester 1894 perfected everything that came before it, blending reliability, firepower, and ease of use into a rifle that outlasted the frontier itself. More than 7 million were produced, cementing its place as the rifle that defined American marksmanship. Chambered in hard-hitting cartridges like the 30-30 Winchester, the first sporting cartridge designed for smokeless powder, the 1894 delivered the stopping power needed for hunting deer, bear, or any game animal, while still being fast and light enough for rapid target acquisition. Its slick lever action and durable steel receiver made it both practical and deadly. For settlers pushing into hostile territory, this wasn't just a rifle. It was peace of mind. But beyond raw performance, the Winchester 1894 carried unmatched psychological weight. Its instantly recognizable silhouette, the rhythmic clack of its lever cycling, and its reputation as the rifle that won the West made it a symbol of survival and dominance. Cowboys, lawmen, and outlaws alike carried it, knowing it could deliver in any scenario the frontier threw their way. From saddle carbines ideal for mounted riders to longer-barreled rifles favored by hunters, the 1894 could be tailored to any need. And unlike many frontier rifles that fell out of use with advancing technology, the Winchester 1894 refused to die. John Browning's genius design used a stronger action than previous Winchesters, allowing it to handle the higher pressures of smokeless powder while maintaining the smooth cycling that made lever actions famous. The Winchester 1894 represented the pinnacle of Wild West firepower. It wasn't just a gun. It was the embodiment of frontier survival. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, subscribe for more journeys through the weapons and warriors who shaped America's most dangerous era. Until next time, keep exploring.